Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Giant Take podcast. And today, for some reason, the G-Men decided to win a football game and only took a bunch of losses in a row. Let me make that 10 to be exact, and not a single win at home until today. In the second to last regular season game, the New York Giants win at home. They move their record to 3-13 with a 45 points scored today against the Indianapolis Colts, knocking them out of playoff contention. And it seems like we have our quarterback of the future. And that's not someone the Giants are going to draft. He was right there on the football field today. Drew Lock getting it done with 5 total touchdowns, 4 passing, 1 rushing. We'll get into all of it and the implication this has on the Giants pick, I guess, in the 2025 NFL draft. I will say that right here to welcome you in. If you're new here, I'm Josh. I'm joined by my friend and co-host Alex. You'll hear or see him. You'll already see him. You'll hear from him in a second. But I will say collectively, we are not a happy group. A happy pairing is not us right now on the Giant Take podcast. And that's been every single time this season, basically every single episode besides a couple. But even in those wins against, I guess the Seahawks one was a pretty fun one. And the Browns one was cool. But I will say this is that we did not want to win a football game for the rest of the season. The Giants did just that today. And I know a lot of people who are against the tanking thing. I get it. They're going to say, are you kidding me? You guys all this season were, you sucked. You're 3-13 or you're 2-13 at the time. You just got your third win. I know it's been a terrible year, but come on, at least be happy that you guys won. Everyone played well today. Your 2 rookies got to 1,000 yards, and we haven't seen someone surpass 1,000 yards receiver-wise since Odell Beckham years ago. Why aren't you happy? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but to sum it up in short, this really does not help the Giants draft stock. Yes, that's obvious, but this could set the team back even more than just next year. And we're going to get into all of that. But first, Alex, I bring you in. How are you doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, the first thing I'll touch on is you mentioned it, right? There's a lot of people who are, anti-tanking. They don't believe in that philosophy. They believe, you got to root for your team to win football games. And for the most part, I've believed that. I've been in that side of the fan base for probably my entire fandom lifetime. And this year was the first time that I went to the dark side, as some call it, and rooted for the Giants to lose some of these games, particularly at the end of the season. And I think my argument used to be for the side of the Giants need to keep winning games, doesn't matter, draft stock, whatever. The culture aspect, the fact that you can't have a losing culture. You need a winning culture. You need a culture that brings out the best in every player, that really shows that we are trying to win every game, that we can win every game. But when you see a culture that's as messed up as the Giants has been for the past, 10 to 12 years since the Super Bowl in 2012, you can't really use that excuse anymore. I think it's gotten to a point where it's kind of it's not valid. The Giants culture has been terrible. They have not had a winning culture, and the only way to change that is to get winning culture players who can, kind of drive you towards that culture. And the way to do that is to get an elite quarterback. We've seen in recent years, I'd say in the Pat Mahomes era, trying not to sound like Chris Collinsworth right now, but the Pat Mahomes era, the idea that having a average QB with a solid with a above average team around him can lead to winning Super Bowls or winning games at an elite level in the NFL has just been shown statistically to not be true anymore. It's not the early 2000s, it's not the 2010s anymore. The way you win football games now in the National Football League is having an elite quarterback. You see that with Patrick Mahomes, you see that with Lamar Jackson, you see that with Josh Allen. And you're seeing that even with new guys like Jade Daniels coming into the league, who's single-handedly winning his team football games. And Daniel Jones couldn't win his team football games, and that's why he's no longer with the Giants. But Drew Lock today, not saying he's one of those guys who can win you football games single-handedly on a consistent basis, but today, 5 touchdowns. He won the Giants the game basically on his own. Of course, you bring Malik Neighbors into the fold, who had a fantastic game. Tyrone Tracy, the defense made a couple of key turnovers, but it really goes to show, and Brian Dable said this post game, quarterback is the most important position. With good quarterback play, you can win games. And he essentially said that, a little shot at ownership for sure post game. And I think that's the philosophy the Giants need to have. But unfortunately, now the Giants have dropped out of quarterback, or at least immediate quarterback range in the draft. And we're at the point where the Giants might not be able to draft the guy that they're looking to get in this year's draft. And they may be stuck with another cycle of bridge quarterbacks or whatnot, or forced to reach on a quarterback once again, like they did 5 or 6 years ago in 2019. So somber day, to sum up my long spiel there. Somber day in the fact that the Giants do not have control of their own destiny at this point, and the cycle of this Giants team for the past 10 to 12 years looks very much to continue for the foreseeable future.
Now, Alex, as you can tell there, I know that you really want to get into kind of what this win means for this team in the future, as you kind of already did. But this title of the episode is called Giants versus Colts Recap. So we do have to talk about the game, at least for some bit. And the team won today, whether we do like it or not. And a player that you mentioned, Drew Lock, helped them do so. But also, this team, for some reason, decided that everything is going to click offensively today. And I don't know if that had to do with the players in the field combined with a dismal Colts defense, or it had to do with more of what the play calling was going to be and the coaching staff finally figuring everything out. However, it only took them, 16 games to do so. I don't know the answer to it, but what I will say is something that we never saw in games this season, and that's scoring. And that came in bunches today, 45 points total, and even bigger thing, second half scoring. The Giants are the worst team in football in that mark, and they did that today, especially in the fourth quarter. They scored the most amount of points in all the 4 quarters in that fourth, with 17 of them. They had 14 in the second, and then 7, just a touchdown in the first and the third. Mind you, I say just a touchdown. With how this team has been playing, just a touchdown is worth a lot. All right. Let's get into it. So, yeah, we had both Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy mark over 1,000 yards on the season. Congratulations to both of those guys. They have been truly remarkable players. We especially saw that in both touchdowns today from Malik Neighbors in his 2 touchdown performance. It's really exciting what's going to happen and what we're going to see, hopefully, from this guy in the future. 59-yard touchdown was the second one that he had. We also had a kick return from Amir Smith-Marset, which we haven't seen since Dwayne Harris did it for the Giants back in 2015. It was just things happening today that we haven't seen from this team, not only this season, but in decades. The Malik Neighbors happening since Odell Beckham with over 1,000 yards. Both players having 1,000 plus yards. I'm trying to find what that stat line was, Alex, between Tracy and Neighbors.
I believe it was the third. It was the third rookie duo ever to both have 1,000 scrimmage yards in their rookie seasons. So
in franchise history or in
league history? League history. Third all time to do that.
So there you go. We had that happen, and then we'll go to stats now for the Giants. Drew Lock, 17 for 23, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. You talk about putting on the team on his back. That's how you do it. Tyrone Tracy, 20 carries, 59 yards. Honestly, an off game for him, but again, he still achieves the 1,000-yard mark. That's what he was looking for. That's what he got. Still is another game to even do more if he wants to. 7 catches for 171 yards. Coming into this game questionable was Malik Neighbors. He had 2 touchdowns, averaged 24 yards per catch. Remarkable. And another player who played really well today, again, haven't seen him all year, but sure, show yourself now. Wan'Dale Robinson, what's going on? How you doing? 5 catches, 71 yards, 14 yards per catch, and a touchdown. Wan'Dale Robinson was making absolutely phenomenal plays on the field. Kind of an underdog player on this team since he was drafted in 2022. He's a short guy. He's fast. He's 5'8". The thing is that Wan'Dale Robinson, the whole thing is he can't be physical. He can't be aggressive. He only relies specifically on his speed and his route running because he's 5'8". So that's what you're hoping to see out of Wan'Dale, and we just haven't been able to see it. You can say, oh, is it bad quarterback play? Is it Wan'Dale just being plain old bad? because Jalen Hyatt is just plain old bad and can't get open. So he's been a bust of a pick so far. Wandale, I wouldn't say has been a bust of a pick. We just saw a glimpse of what he can be today. Who knows if that's just, blatantly exposing bad coverages by the Colts or whatnot. Everything just seemed to click today, whether it was Wandale, whether it was the Giants getting kick returns, whether it was Malik having one of the best games, if not, you can argue the best game of his career. Drew Lock, the same to him in that standard. Oh, yeah, and then the Giants somehow were getting turnovers all of a sudden now, too. 2 interceptions on the day. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. Everything that happened in this game was just surprising, one thing after another, and it just ended up in a Giants win. So, Alex, I just went on an even longer rant than I think you did. That's a game recap for you.
Yeah, and I mean, Malik Neighbors has been, very much a focal point of this Giants offense throughout the season, but I think it was never more clear than today that if you get the ball in his hands, special things are going to happen. I mean, he was breaking tackles left and right. His acceleration, his shiftiness, his awareness with the ball in his hands is just second to none. He feels very Jamar Chase-like in the way that he operates. It almost feels like a carbon copy. I was watching the Bengals a few days ago. It feels very, very similar to that. And I think you're looking at these elite receivers in the league, and they're very, very valuable. But we've seen now with Tyreek Hill this season,
Are you
Tua has
saying
not
that
been
it
at his
compares?
best.
Are you saying that Malik Neighbors compares to Jamar Chase?
I wouldn't go there quite yet, but I think the way they play is very similar. I'm trying to think.
That was our comparison for Malik Neighbors heading into the
Of
draft.
course.
Just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, you see it on his film, right? You see it on the tape. He moves very similarly. The way he kind of reads the game, the way he operates, the routes that are designed for both of the players are very much similar. I think Jamar Chase definitely has a bit more in the deep game in terms of deep throws down the field than Malik Neighbors does at this current time. But if you look at his LSU tape, he definitely has that in his bag. So I would say they're very similar players, and I think Malik Neighbors has, maybe I'm biased here, but he has the potential to be better than Jamar Chase. I think he's quicker. I think his hands are better in more of the contested catch situations. And I think he has a better leap as well going up for those high balls. So from that standpoint, very much, happy to see that. Tyrone Tracy ran off of that 40-yard rush earlier in the game, which was very positive to see. And I think another thing that, not a lot of people are talking about, but the O-line, even with backups at the guard spots, even with Evan Neal, even with Illuminor at his, odd spot there at left tackle, Van Roten at center, a makeshift offensive line, they were much, much better than we've seen in the past few weeks today. Drew Lock had a lot of time in the pocket. And because of that, he was able to make plays and he was able to throw 5 touchdowns. So I think that's a key point to make. And the defense, in terms of stopping Jonathan Taylor, did a pretty decent job. I know on the stat pad or on the stat sheet, he has 100+ yards and he had 2 touchdowns. But in terms of how he felt like he impacted the game, at least from an eye test wise, from a momentum wise, it didn't feel like he was heavily involved and heavily tearing apart this Giants defense like we had feared. And I think that was a main positive for them. Of course, the cornerback situation was not great. Michael Pittman, Adonai Mitchell, Josh Downs tearing this defense apart. Alec Pierce, of course, can't forget to mention him. So very concerning from that standpoint. But from the front 7 guys, a lot of positives to be taken out of it. And the trenches definitely were something that the Giants have been struggling all season with, and they definitely showed out today against the Colts, who, granted, were very much not battling at their hardest or at their best, I should say, in those departments, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And Colts fans, I don't know if you saw this, Josh, were absolutely outraged at the performance of their team today, because losing to the 2-13 Giants after, or with potential playoff hopes still in the balance, not the way you want your season to end. Let's just say that.
Yeah, Alex. So what we'll do is we'll take a break right now. We talked about the game. We recapped it. Now we're going to talk about what this means for the future of the franchise right on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
It's got to be smiling faces. What's it like walking into that locker room today?
Yeah. Again, I'm just happy for the players, for the coaches. You go. It's a tough season. But we got a lot of good people, a lot of good character people on our football team, and they work every day. And it's good to see results. It's good to see smile on their faces. I'm happy for the players and the coaches that put so much into it.
All right, so with this win today, the New York Giants slide from the first pick projected in the 2025 NFL Draft down 3 spots to 4. Giants now have a 5% chance of gaining that first pick back. Right now, it's held by the Patriots. Following them is the Tennessee Titans and Cleveland Browns, and the New York Giants sitting at 3-13 with the 4th pick in the NFL Draft. This move could very well lose the Giants their chances of getting the top 2 quarterbacks in this year's draft class, which whatever way you want to order them, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I'm doing that in no particular order, even though I have one I prefer over the other, that being Cam Ward. Regardless, it doesn't matter because the Giants might not have a chance of getting either of them. And you look towards, well, how can that be possible? Tennessee right now, their quarterback room is all over the place right now. Today for that team, you saw Will Levis, you saw Mason Rudolph out there. They're in need of a quarterback. Cleveland you might say, oh, well, they're staying with Deshaun Watson. You have no idea with the amount of things that is going on with Deshaun Watson, not only contract-wise, performance on the field-wise, and then outside of the locker room and his personal life, the amount of stuff that he's done outside of the NFL is outrageous. So I don't know if the Browns want anything to do with him next year. They might want a quarterback to come in and replace him. I don't know what New England's going to do. They have all the cards to their chest right now. They can trade away that first pick. They don't need a quarterback, or they can draft Travis Hunter first. It depends on really what they want. And I could very well see New England, even with Bill Belichick not there anymore, trading away that first pick, gaining a lot of draft capital, and just going back in that first round, and someone else trades up to get a quarterback. Is it the New York Giants? I don't know if it is. But right now, again, the Giants with the 4th pick in this year's NFL Draft, which would leave them out of a spot to get a quarterback, which would then kind of the rabbit hole Alex was going down, leads them to select. We don't know yet. We haven't done that far. We went really early in November and started looking at quarterbacks because that's what we need. So if that leads us to draft another position player, whether that be someone in the secondary, okay. Then we draft a cornerback at 4, and then we signed a veteran quarterback, just similar to like a Daniel Jones-esque mid-tier in Kirk Cousins or like a Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold's going to be looking for a lot of money. Also, why would he leave Minnesota right now where a team is very much successful, going for the top of the NFC and going to battle in the playoffs, possibly a Super Bowl run? Who knows? Sign someone like that, middle tier, and do the whole thing again, hoping that you get the nephew of one of the Giant greats and future Hall of Famers in Eli Manning's, Arch Manning, his nephew out of Texas, next year in the 2026 NFL Draft. That's what we're going at right now. I know we might be going a little too hypothetical, a little too crazy for some Giants fans, but honestly, that's just the thoughts of what's going through our head right now. Because, like I said at the top of the show, and I meant it, people might not want to look. Sorry, losing my wording here. People might not want to look that far, and I understand that because we've just been in a rut this season and no one wants to look ahead and just hope everything's going to get better. But this win today might have set the Giants back 2 more years. And I say that lightly.
Yeah, I mean, at least, Josh, at least 2 years. I don't see a guy in this class behind the Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders that's really worth taking that early. So I think the Giants would be forced to either trade up, if, of course, everything stays as is, right? I think the Browns are a wild card. The Titans will most definitely be taking a quarterback. Patriots will most definitely not be taking a quarterback. And the Patriots now, the Raiders are in the mix for a quarterback, I'm sure, a couple spots back. The Saints are going to be in a mix for the quarterback, a couple spots back from the Giants as well. So there's going to be a large bidding war to trade up for these quarterbacks for, say, a team like the Patriots or a team like the Jaguars if they were to kind of slide back down into one of those top 4, top 3 spots. So there's going to be a lot of competition. There's a lot of QB needy teams, and you're going to have, assuming Joe Shane and Brian Dable stay on board, which I think after this win is more likely than it was, say, a couple of days ago, you're going to have a very desperate GM in Joe Shane who knows that his only path to staying employed is to draft a quarterback. So Doesn't matter if that's Shedeur Sanders, if that's Cam Ward, if that's Jalen Milroe.
That's a matter if he's employed in the 2025 NFL draft.
Yeah,
Are you saying he's going to
exactly.
be employed?
I don't see how he's not employed at this point at the draft
Okay.
time. And I think I'd say 95% chance he stays around. Dable, probably I put him at 75%, 80% now
And
after
that's
today's
after
win.
this win today? Really?
Yeah,
That's after the
I
win.
probably upped it. I probably upped it maybe 10 to 15% after today's win. I think these wins matter a lot to John Mara, and I think it's going to be tough for him after seeing the team fight for Brian Dable like they did today, for him to say we're done with him and that we need a new regime here in New York. And I think Joe Shane is going to feel the pressure. Don't get me wrong, because the Giants are going to win 3 or 4 games this season, and that's not good enough for the New York Football Giants. And Joe Shane is going to feel that pressure if he's here. And John Mara will be breathing down his neck. Steve Tisch will be breathing down his neck. He will have no choice but to take a quarterback, whether that is one of the top guys or whether that's reaching for a guy like Carson Beck or even Jackson Dart or whoever may be further down the board, as long as they're still available, because the New York Giants need a quarterback. They need someone that they can kind of follow into the future. And Joe Shane needs someone that he can kind of have as kind of not say an excuse, but a reason for him to stick around, a quarterback that he deserves to kind of stick around and help develop. And I think that's the path that the Giants are ultimately going to have to go. And, as much as it's terrible for the team, I don't blame Joe Shane. I think all of us as Giants fans can kind of appreciate wanting to stay in a job. And, it's the same thing for him. It's the same thing for NFL GMs as it is for anybody who works in any profession, no matter what you do, even if you work a regular 9 to 5 or whatnot, not a New York Giants GM, but it's the same concept. And you're not going to do something to screw yourself out of that kind of opportunity. So it's going to be a tough situation for the Giants. And I don't really see a great way out of it at this time. Unless, of course, you stick with your guns, you just take the best player available, or you try to trade up and get one of those guys if you really, really like them. And I think that's the only way you can go about it. But I'm pretty confident at this point that Joe Shane and Brian Dable are going to stick around. And because of that, I do think they'll still be going for a quarterback, but probably not one of the guys that Giants fans want the most at this moment.
Well, Alex, I'll tell you one thing that's wrong during what you just said. Steve Tisch breathing down the neck. Steve Tisch probably doesn't even know when the NFL draft is until about 5 days before it.
True.
But
Yeah.
I will say John Mara maybe will be.
Steve Tisch will be breathing down his neck if ticket sales don't improve. That I can tell you. But besides that, he probably won't care too much.
However, I was very happy to see not many people, if at all, there were people for sure in the parking lots, but not until later, towards the 1:00 start, and also a good amount of people in seats for the last game. Like, I guess I didn't think it was going to be completely empty, but I felt like there still could have been more open seats. I will say that it seemed pretty crowded on TV. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
So no, you laid it all out there. I said my piece in the first half leading into yours. So that's where we're at right now. The Giants have the 4th pick in this year's draft. I'm not happy about it. Alex is certainly not happy about it either. We're gonna really seem to miss out here on Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward unless something changes. And even if the Giants win, because by the way, the Giants can very well win next week too. They're going to play against an Eagles team who has already won the NFC East. They're going to be resting their starters. They're going to be without Jalen Hurts. And now Kenny Pickett, it seems like, as he sustained an injury in today's game. So they'll have a 3rd or 4th string quarterback in. We'll have Drew Lock again, who looks like a superstar. And this team wants to prove something. And let me get this straight, too. I don't blame them. Like Darius Slayton today said, F the tank, right? After the game. I don't blame him. Like, all the players on this team, they don't care about our draft next year. They want to win as a team right now. Some of the players might not even be on the team next year, so they don't care the Giants draft, right? I mean, they're on contract years. They won't get re-signed, whatever it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the same concept as Joe Shane, right? These guys, they're also working. I know, as weird as it seems, they're also employed by the New York Giants, and they're either looking for new job prospects or they're looking for a new contract or whatnot. To further their own careers. Drew Lock in particular, right? This guy, he's looking for a starting QB job or a very high-end backup job next year. So, of course, he's going to go out there and ball. He's not going to submit to the tank and so that the Giants can, draft his replacement. Of course, he's not going to do that. So I know it's easy for us fans to kind of sit here and just go, yeah, let's just tank and intentionally lose. Like I can just, put my controller down on Madden and then the CPU just, throws the ball all over me and scores 10 touchdowns and we lose. And now I get the first pick to draft who I want. It's, not the same in real life. So you do have to understand it from that perspective as well.
So with that being said, the Giants can very well win this game next week, and that's kind of what I was going towards. And then we even drop towards the end of the top 10. Who knows? It's a really open end towards the end of the season, the conclusion of the 2024-25 season for the New York Giants, and that's just kind of what we have to live with at this point. Which is really funny because I think we were really content for it going one way. And it was like, okay, we have the first pick. We're just going to lose every game. Seems to be coming easy to us. Joe Shane and Brian Dable are gone. We're going to have a completely new regime. We're going to draft a quarterback in Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And we're going to that's it. Like full tank. It just seemed very basic, very bare bone basic tank. Get all the losses in. Get the new quarterback. Get the new regime. But it just sneaks up on you. This New York Giants team, they get a win today. Everything out of the picture. Shane and Dable, guess they're back for another year. They got a crucial win. That quarterback, not so fast, right? So who knows? Truly at a loss of thoughts now at this point in the episode. I can't say at a loss for words because we just yapped for about 25 or so minutes about our thoughts because we did have a lot of them. All right, so that's what we have it here. We'll see what happens after next week if the Giants play the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll have a preview for you right here on the Giant Take podcast, talking about the game and what might happen and if starters will be in for Philly. I'm sure we'll find that out throughout the week from head coach Nick Sirianni, I would think. But we'll have to wait and see. Thanks so much for watching this episode and or listening. If you did that, follow us on our social at the Giant Take Pod. And I'm on Twitter at JoshSolo29, Alex on Twitter at Inorian23. Follow the TikTok. I've been trying to revamp it as much as I can. Been posting daily content on there, so check that out. And that's all I got. Giants win in a game against the Indianapolis Colts today. Malik Neighbors, 2 touchdowns. Drew Lock, 5 touchdowns, 4 passing, 1 rushing, and the Giants beat the Colts 45-33, improving to 3-13 on the season.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening again, and hope everyone had a great weekend, great holidays, and I guess actually I just realized this is our last episode of 2024. So hope everyone has a great, happy new year, and we'll see everyone in 2025. Looking forward to another week of Giants football somehow against the Philadelphia Eagles, but the last one, I promise, and we'll be into the offseason and seeing where this team's future goes. See you next time. Peace.